whispered hushed tones. There's a certain ideology that's attached to that city, and it's not logical. It's a kooky, wacky, completely insulated left-wing view of the world, and they enforce it with an iron fist. And if you're not on that team, you don't get booked for things. You don't get picked for things. If you're someone who has conservative leanings, or you talk about there's projects you're never going to get.
Joe Rogan has never played by Hollywood's rules. He doesn't bow to studio elites. He doesn't care about virtue signaling scripts. And he's certainly not afraid to say out loud what millions whisper in private. And that's exactly why his latest takedown of woke Hollywood hits so hard. Because it wasn't just blunt, it was brutal, and it left no room for the hypocrisy to hide. Rogan has been calling this out for years. The way Hollywood pretends to be the moral compass of society, preaching tolerance, equality, and truth on stage while behind closed doors it operates on greed, exploitation, and politics. It's an industry that applauds itself for bravery when actors recite pre-approved speeches, yet cancels anyone who dares to step outside the narrative, and Rogan ripped straight through that facade. He pointed out how these same celebrities who lecture working-class Americans on climate change are the ones flying private jets to award shows.
The last thing they want to do is do something and talk about something that's going to politically get them at odds with the people that run the studios. So no one does. Everybody just follows the same sort of wacky ideology that these people take from the universities.
How they scream about equality while living in gated mansions protected from the very crime waves they claim don't exist. How they demand inclusivity but blacklist anyone who doesn't parrot the script. And it's that double standard that Rogan shredded with his trademark mix of sarcasm and cold, undeniable truth. What makes Rogan dangerous to Hollywood elites is simple. He can't be canceled. He doesn't need their money. He doesn't need their platforms. His reach is bigger than theirs. His podcast pulls more ears than their movies pull tickets. And that terrifies them, because it means when he calls out the hypocrisy, millions listen, millions nod, millions say, finally, someone said it. And the brilliance of Rogan's takedown is that he uses logic, not just emotion. He reminds people that free speech is a cornerstone of society, that uncomfortable conversations are how we grow, and that pretending feelings override facts is childish. He hammers home that Hollywood's obsession with censorship and moral posturing isn't progress. It's regression. It's fragility dressed up as virtue. And that message resonated because the audience is tired of fake outrage, tired of performative activism, tired of watching stars cry on stage while living lives completely detached from the reality of the people they claim to represent. So when Rogan dropped his truth bombs, it wasn't just about Hollywood anymore. It was about a culture that rewards pretending over honesty. And that's why it spread, because his words weren't polished, weren't scripted, weren't designed for applause. They were raw, real, and untouchable by the very people he was targeting. And once again, Rogan proved why he's become the most important voice outside of Hollywood. Because he doesn't just criticize, he exposes, he shines a spotlight where they'd rather keep things in the dark. And when that spotlight hits, the hypocrisy has nowhere left to hide. Here's the thing about Joe Rogan's takedown. It wasn't just surface-level criticism. It was a scalpel cutting right into the rotten core of woke Hollywood. And the deeper he went, the uglier it got. Because what Hollywood sells to the world as progress is often nothing more than performance. Stage morality designed to protect billion-dollar brands, not to actually solve problems, and Rogan laid it all bare. He talked about cancel culture, that toxic weapon Hollywood uses to control speech, the way a single tweet, a joke, or a slip-up can end a career, not because it's truly harmful, but because the mob decides it's offensive that day, and Rogan called it out for what it is: cultural blackmail, intimidation disguised as justice, an industry pretending to champion freedom while silencing anyone who disagrees.
Get this overwhelming anxiety that fills the city.
Yeah.
And then now you have TikTokers and influencers and all these people that are just trying to do anything to get famous.
Yeah.
And that the reality stars and all that started it all off, and the Real Housewives and all that wacky. That's a storm of anxiety. And just a hurricane of confusion and Zoloft and fucking and everyone's losing their mind, and everyone's in therapy, and everyone's nuts and everyone's trans. It's out of touch.
And the hypocrisy of it? Celebrities cheer on cancellation until it's their friend, their co-star, or themselves on the chopping block. Then suddenly they want forgiveness. Suddenly they want nuance. But the mob they fed doesn't care. It just devours whoever is next in line. And then there's the so-called diversity push. Hollywood parades its inclusive casting choices on the red carpet, pats itself on the back, and gives itself an award for bravery. But behind the scenes, the power is still concentrated in the hands of the same elite circles, the same wealthy executives, the same insulated families that have controlled it for decades. And Rogan highlighted that perfectly, reminding everyone that real diversity isn't about putting different faces on posters. It's about opening doors of opportunity across the board, something Hollywood has never been serious about doing. But the hypocrisy doesn't stop there, because when Hollywood screams about climate change, it expects working families to drive smaller cars, eat less meat, and change their daily lives, while celebrities hop on private jets to fly 30 minutes across California, attend extravagant award shows powered by energy-hungry spotlights, and live in sprawling mansions that consume more electricity in a week than an average family uses in a year. Rogan mocked this openly, saying what everyone thinks. If Hollywood elites cared as much as they pretend, they'd start with themselves. But they won't, because it's always easier to preach sacrifice than actually live it. And this is why Rogan's voice cuts through. Because he doesn't just rant, he points out the real-world contradiction, the absurdity of an industry that censors comedians for edgy jokes, but applauds actors for making speeches written by publicists, the insanity of stars demanding equity, while paying stylists more for one night than many families earn in a month, the lunacy of billion-dollar studios crying about oppression, while selling escapism to the very audience they claim to despise. And the crowd listening to Rogan gets it. They nod along because they see the same hypocrisy every time they scroll their feeds. Hollywood sells the image of being morally superior, but Joe Rogan has exposed that image as nothing but a mask to cover greed, a mask to protect power, a mask to distract from corruption, and he doesn't mince words about it. He says flat out, Hollywood doesn't want truth, it wants control, and the woke narrative has become the perfect tool for it. And that's why the backlash against Hollywood is real, because audiences are waking up. They're realizing they don't need celebrities to tell them how to live. They don't need billionaires to teach them about sacrifice. They don't need elitist actors to define morality. And Rogan is channeling that frustration, giving it a voice, showing people that it's okay to push back. It's okay to laugh at the absurdity. It's okay to call out the emperor with no clothes. By the end of his rant, Rogan didn't just embarrass Hollywood. He dismantled it, piece by piece, stripping away the glossy veneer, the fake activism, the endless virtue signaling, and leaving only the truth. And the truth is this. Hollywood's moral authority is a lie, a performance, a stage act that crumbles the second someone refuses to clap. And Joe Rogan? He refused, he exposed, and he destroyed that illusion for everyone watching. At the end of the day, Joe Rogan didn't just criticize Hollywood. He exposed it. He stripped away the fake morality, the empty speeches, and the endless hypocrisy, and he did it without fear, because unlike the stars he's calling out, he doesn't need their approval, he doesn't need their money, and he doesn't play by their rules. That's why this moment landed so hard, because people are tired of being lectured by millionaires who live nothing like them. Tired of watching actors cry on stage while ignoring the real struggles of the world. Tired of Hollywood pretending it owns the truth when all it owns is a script. And Rogan said what millions feel, enough is enough. And that's the real brutality of his takedown. It wasn't about shouting, it wasn't about rage. It was about holding up a mirror, forcing Hollywood to face the reality it's been running from. And when that mirror hit, the mask shattered, because no amount of applause can hide the truth forever. In the end, Joe Rogan didn't just destroy woke Hollywood's hypocrisy. He reminded everyone of a simple fact. Reality always wins. And Hollywood? It just got a brutal taste of it.